Welcome to the Daily Bite. I'm your host, Pastor Steve Andrews. Today's chapter is Job 32. So these three men ceased to answer Job because he was righteous in his own eyes. Then Elihu, the son of Barachel, the Buzite of the family of Ram, burned with anger. He burned with anger at Job because he justified himself rather than God. He burned with anger also at Job's three friends because they had found no answer, although they had declared Job to be in the wrong. Now Elihu had waited to speak to Job because they were older than he. And when Elihu saw that there was no answer in the mouth of these three men, he burned with anger. And Elihu the son of Barachel the Buzite answered and said, I am young in years, and you are aged. Therefore I was timid and afraid to declare my opinion to you. I said, let days speak, and many years teach wisdom. But it is the spirit in man, the breath of the Almighty, that makes him understand. It is not the old who are wise, nor the aged who understand what is right. Therefore I say, listen to me, let me also declare my opinion. Behold, I waited for your words, I listened for your wise sayings, while you searched out what to say. I gave you my attention, and behold, there was none among you who refuted Job, or who answered his words. Beware, lest you say, we have found wisdom. God may vanquish him, not a man. He has not directed his words against me, and I will not answer him with your speeches. They are dismayed, they answer no more. They have not a word to say, and shall I wait because they do not speak? Because they stand there and answer no more? I also will answer with my share. I also will declare my opinion, for I am full of words. The spirit within me constrains me. Behold, my belly is like wine that has no vent, like new wineskins ready to burst. I must speak, that I may find relief. I must open my lips and answer. I will not show partiality to any man or use flattery toward any person. For I do not know how to flatter, else my Maker would soon take me away. This is the word of the Lord. So we have entering into the picture a fourth. Well, I guess a fifth if you count Job. So you got Job, his three friends, and then Elihu. We haven't seen Elihu up until this point. He hasn't been named or mentioned as even being present, but from his language, from the words he uses, he clearly has been. He has been there for it all. He's heard the friends. He's heard Job. And at this point, are you a bottler? Just, your own personal style of things. Do you bottle up things and then just kind of burst your top at some point? Because that's kind of what Elihu did here. He bottled it up. He wanted to speak. He kept waiting, and then the anger got I want to say the anger got the best of him, but at the same time, I'm not sure that's true. The study Bible, since we don't get a whole lot of Elihu yet today, the study Bible suggests that Elihu's words are going to be true, that they're going to be good and worthwhile. So let's hold off on making the statement about his anger being out of line. I mean, there's a right reason to be angry, although we sinners are not very good at it. All right, so starting with the text, verse 1, eventually the three friends stopped. Even a man trying to do a good thing that he believes to be the right thing, even he will eventually tire of trying again and again and again if it's not being received. These three men thought they were in the right, thought they were doing well by attempting to persuade Job, but they've realized that's not going to happen. They've come to the end of the line, and so they've stopped. The reasoning given by verse 1, because he was righteous in his own eyes. That's a key phrase. He's not righteous in God's eyes, according to verse 1, but his own. So there's a stubbornness here that they could not overcome. So who is Elihu? It's hard to say. Son of Barachel, the Buzite, family of Ram. I mean, you've got, just like the other three, Bildad, Eliphaz, and Zophar from the beginning of the book, when we learned of them, they're from all over the place. And Buzite probably places Elihu somewhere off to the east where he's come from. So they're all scattered all over, and yet they've come together for this from around the world. And he burns with anger. Oh, that phrase gets used several times in this paragraph. He's angry at Job because Job was focusing on himself. Again, that's sinful nature, right? We focus on me, 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 me. Instead of justifying God, instead of speaking well of God, Job was trying to speak well of himself. We've brought that up a few times throughout the book already at this point. And then he's angry at Job's friends because they couldn't convince Job of this, right? They accused him of being wrong, but they couldn't even convict him of that. So they're failing to apply the law to Job. And verse 4 tells us he waited to speak because he is the younger. We're going to get that. He's going to explain that himself as we get down to the text of his speech in verse 6. So he answers, I am young in years, you are aged. Therefore I was timid and afraid to declare my opinion to you. With age comes honor. And it's fourth commandment stuff right there. We honor our mother and our father. We honor our authorities that God has put over us. We honor the people in our community who have that status of being elders to us. There's something to that. And so Elihu was trying to honor their age. He was trying to honor them by letting them speak instead of him speaking. And yet, it didn't work, did it? I'm skipping ahead. Verse 7, let days speak and many years teach wisdom. Culturally, we believed and held the same for a long time in the United States. That essentially with age comes wisdom. Our culture doesn't believe that anymore. Our culture has more of a tendency these days to look down on those who have gone before them rather than having a high opinion of them. But anyway, Elihu continues on that as God has breathed the breath of life into man, it is through that gift that God has given that God gives us understanding. So, listen to me. Verse 10, he says, question you can unpack from this paragraph with your children: how do we honor our elders when they're wrong? What does it look like to honor dad and mom when they're wrong? Or your teacher at school, or whoever it may be. That's going to depend on the situation, so hopefully you can come up with examples to talk about that have happened. It's probably easier if your children are older. But, if it's something like, mom or dad said a word wrong because they don't know how to pronounce it, the honorable thing to do there might be to gently correct them. Not like rudely or making fun of, but just gently. I think the proper way to say that word is like that. And that's honorable because you want to help them. Sometimes mom and dad, as they dish out punishment, the punishment may not seem fair or right or just. The honorable thing to do there is to adhere to it anyway. So it depends on the situation, it depends on what's going on, but hopefully you can unpack some of those things. Sometimes the honorable thing to do is to just respect them and keep going and do whatever it is that they said. Sometimes it's to teach them the truth. If they're here's a different one. If they are wrong, if your authorities are wrong about something of the Lord, well, then that is an instance where the honorable thing to do there is not to listen to what they've given you to do, but rather instead to continue to follow in the Lord's steps. So there's some examples to consider. So we get to the next paragraph, verse 12. There was none among you who refuted Job or answered his words. So despite it being a 3-on-1, Job won the argument, stumped the friends. They did not know how to continue. He urges them caution, right? Beware, lest you say we have found wisdom, God will vanquish him. Verses 6 through 14 appear to be directed towards the three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar. Verse 15 and following would appear to be directed at Job. Shifting gears, so now he says they, so his friends. They are dismayed, they answer no more. Verse 17, I will answer with my share, for I am full of words. That's not necessarily a good thing, right? We all know people like that are full of words. They can talk. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes what they say is worth listening to. Other times, not so much. We all know those people. Sometimes we are those people ourselves. Just because you have a lot to say doesn't actually make it worth saying. His analogy here, though, is vivid, right? His belly is about to explode, so his words are holed up in his belly like wine in a wineskin that hasn't been vented. So the wine is fermenting, and the skin will eventually burst. He's going to burst if he doesn't speak, so he must speak, verse 20, in order to find relief. This is one, if you have older kids, you might talk about. Have you ever felt this way? Have you ever felt like you just had to say what you had to say? It's not as easy a conversation with little kids, because little kids don't have a filter. They don't know how to turn that off. They just, if they want to say something, they just say it. But with our older children, this is certainly a conversation point. Why did you feel that way? Did you eventually speak, or did you continue to hold back? And maybe they'll share the situation with you to the point where you can unpack with them how they handled the situation. If they handled it well, if they didn't, what might they have done differently, or what could they do differently next time if that situation is likely to recur. Verse 21, I will not show partiality to any man or use flattery toward any person. That's good, because he's trying to be fair and judge the situation at hand. Partiality is not helpful, nor is flattery. I admit I don't understand verse 22. I do not know how to flatter. Okay, I get that. Else my Maker would soon take me away. That's the part I don't understand. What is Elihu saying? It's a one-off. It doesn't make any difference, because in verse 1 of chapter 33 tomorrow, he's just going to move on and speak to Job anyway. But is he saying that he would flatter God to the point where God would take him home to paradise early? Or is he suggesting that his flattery would get him into trouble, and so the Lord would put an end to his life early? Now, those are a couple of possibilities, but personally, I don't know. I'm not sure. So we're going to actually see more of Elihu's argument tomorrow. But for now, he has simply rebuked the three friends for essentially having done nothing. They've accused Job of being wrong, but they couldn't even convict him of that fact. So we'll see what Elihu has to say tomorrow.